Hey folks, once again welcome to another installation of mobile mouse tips and tricks for Microsoft Word. This particular video is all about tabs and tab stops in Microsoft Word. So a very common thing that we often see people do, especially on our sort of basic sort of to intermediate level, is if they were typing up a list of values, what they might look to do is they might very commonly you see them pressing the space bar, and then they might enter in a bit of text, and looking to press enter, they type in some other basic bit of text, and then to line up the next bit of text they end up pressing the space bar and space bar, and well, what eventually happens is things just don't line up. Alright, so of course you want to avoid doing that completely. So let's look at a slightly better way to approach this. Now if you were to type a word and then press tab, now what I'll do so you can actually see this clearly, on the Home tab we've got the show hard paragraph mark, or technically known as the show hard character symbol. Now when we click that, you'll notice how by pressing tab, and I'll just press backspace quickly, pressing tab, that indicates, the arrow indicates that we've actually pressed a tab. So if we were to press tab again and then type in the bit of text, now the default is a tab stop of 1.27 centimeters. When we press enter, if we were to type some text, we could tab, tab, tab a third time this time, and then enter in some information. You'll notice it does line up a little bit better though. However, you notice that I've had to press a different number of tabs for each of these lines. So this is where tab stops themselves come in really handy. So if you have a look in the top left hand corner of the screen, just below your ribbon, the first little icon that presents itself here is what is known as a left tab marker. Now I just wanted to point out that by single clicking you can cycle through to something known as the center tab. You can click again and that cycles through to an option known as a right tab. Click again, you get something known as a decimal tab, and clicking again you get something known as a bar tab, which is my favorite kind of tab. Now clicking that again you get a first line indent and a hanging indent. So clicking once more we're back to a left tab marker. So let's start off with a simple example where before we even set the tab we'll type in some text, and what we'll look to do on the ruler with the left tab marker set to go is we'll look to maybe position the cursor at about say 4.5 on the ruler, and we're going to give it a single click. Now instead of jumping 1.27 centimeters when you press tab, notice how now when we press tab the cursor jumps to 4.5 on the ruler. Right, and if I was to type something, you'll notice how this word lines up left of that tab, or to the left edge of that tab. So now if we were to, let's cycle over to the top left over here, and we're going to look to set what we call a center tab. If we were to set this at say 10 on the ruler and then press tab, the cursor would jump to 10 at the ruler. So now if we were to type say a word like description, you'll notice how that word basically positions itself centered underneath 10 because of the type of tab being a center tab. Now just briefly, if I was to remove that tab marker, the center tab marker at 10, by simply grabbing it and dragging it down off the ruler, you notice that it'll default to just a single tab stop of 1.27 centimeters. However, the great thing here of course is if I was to change this now to, let's say, a right tab, and notice how the tab is already being pressed over here. If we were to say clicking at 11 on the ruler, automatically that jumps to 11 on the ruler and it right aligns to the marker. Now we could of course here, we could take this value over here, this little, bigger part, this little tab stop marker over here, and we could drag that to 13 to reposition that accordingly. Well, let's drag it back to 12. Now cycling through the tab stop options again, we've got something known as a decimal tab. Now there's a quick demonstration of what this actually does. Let's say we were to click at 15 and then press tab. If we were to type a number followed by some decimal points, what the decimal tab stop does is it basically lines the decimal point at 15 or wherever that decimal tab marker is positioned on the ruler. So for now though, what we'll do is we'll just get rid of that, and we'll also remove that marker on the ruler. Now what we'll look to do is we're going to grab the marker at 12, which remember is a right tab, and we'll drag that over to say 15.5 for now. We could adjust that in a minute. Now if I was to press return or enter, it would move us to the next line, new paragraph, and notice how it maintains those tab stops. Now I'm just pressing backspace. Now incidentally, last time we just pressed enter. If we were to press shift enter, that basically starts a new line. It's known as a soft line break, or a line break, not a soft line break, a line break. That basically starts a new line, but notice it doesn't have the same paragraph spacing of the previous example when we pressed enter. That's because you're not starting a new paragraph, you're just doing what we call a line break. Now, if we were to type a vehicle, tab over, and then type a number, and then press tab again, notice that the text we type right aligns to the marker at 12. Right, so now what we're going to look to do over here is I'm just briefly going to turn off the show hard paragraph symbols, and in the top left we're going to look to apply what is known as a bar tab. Right, so now if we were to select both of these lines, and let's say we were to click at say 2.5, let's say we were to click at say 7, and let's say 10 on the ruler, basically what that does is it draws a bar tab. Now these are printing lines. These lines will print. It's sort of like a vertical column divider, if you will. So now what would happen is, let's say we would, again, just to drag the marker at 15.5, we would drag that off the ruler. It goes pear-shaped pretty quickly. All right. For our international viewers, pear-shaped is a common Australian term for it went wrong. Alright, so in the top left we cycle across, and we're now going to look to set a left tab marker once again. So if I was to click at say 11, you'll notice how that positions the marker or the text at 11. We could grab the marker at 10, drag that off the ruler, grab the marker at 11 again, and just reposition. And you notice it's a great option for repositioning text on the page. Right, so let's give you another example of tab stops and how they can potentially be useful. Now at the end of this paragraph, I'll just turn the paragraph mark back on. If show hard characters, if I was to press enter, you notice it continues that formatting on. Now if I was to, in this instance, look over onto the font group on the home tab, there's a clear all formatting button. Now to point out that if I was to click that, that would reset the formatting for the paragraph. Now we're just pressing undo. What you could also potentially do is, on that particular paragraph where you've got these formats applied, you can actually get to the paragraph dialog box by hitting little Duvalaki, and we're going to go click on tabs, and notice over here this is another way you can set your tab stops. And from here you could go clear for a specific tab, or you could simply clear all of the tabs and then click OK. Now I'll just press return once more, and now what we'll look to do, just as another common example, let's say we had a left tab marker set ready to go, and I was to click at say 1 on the ruler. Pressing tab, of course, the cursor would jump to that position. So I'm going to type a word. Now what we'll look to do is we're going to cycle across over here, and we're going to get to set a right tab marker. Now before I actually apply this right tab marker, I'll just point out something very common again that we often see people do. Now what I'm actually doing here is I'm just pressing full stop or the period symbol on the keyboard. Now if I was to type a number, alright, and then press return, tab again, and then what I'll often see people do is full stop, or period, trying to draw joining lines that join one item to the next. And again, the problem here is it's very, very difficult to get things to line up. So what would be a much more feasible option here, instead of, again, of course, to press the full stop, is to simply utilize tabs. So now, again, I've got a right tab marker set and ready to go. Now if I was to click at, say, 13 on the ruler, right? Now what I could do from here is I could simply straight away, instead of going paragraph tabs, selecting 13 and adjusting the settings, we could actually simply just double click the marker. Now by double clicking that tab stop marker, let's say at 13, what we're going to do is we're going to have a right tab, but we'd like to have what is known as a leader. Clicking set, then clicking OK. If we were to press tab and then type a number, enter, tab, the next item, tab again, the next number, you'll notice how that automatically causes things to line up in a much neater fashion. So yeah guys, hopefully that made sense. You got a little bit out of the video. Tab stops are a great option for Microsoft Word for laying out content. hopefully you enjoyed the video, and we look forward to hearing from you guys sometime in the future. Thanks for your time. Cheers. Bye.